Look out, Conan. There's a new barbarian in town. Hey, comic heads, and welcome back to Dangerous Comics. I'm your host, Dane Georges, and today we're looking at Crania by Brian McCray. Now, I'm super excited to check out this comic with you guys on the channel. I'm a big fan of Brian McCray's drawing style and storytelling. This came out back in November of 2021 and is published by Strangers Fanzine. And Strangers Publishing was founded on February 14th, 2020, and was originally a quarterly fanzine. But Strangers continued to grow throughout the year, adding an online store and focusing on small press. Here's like an example of one of the fanzines that Strangers would put out. This is a really cool publication with really interesting and diverse interviews and stories, and also promoting some awesome comics. So I feel like we think of fanzines having gone away with the internet culture, but there is still fanzines you can find, whether it's through Strangers. I don't think they're actually publishing this anymore, but there is also the great fanzine bubbles. So there's comic fanzines out there. There is the community. There are people that are hungry for this content. There's people like you that are watching this video. So I thank you for that. And if you're looking for more kind of interviews and content that talks about comics that you maybe are not as familiar with, I would really highly suggest you seek out a Bubbles or a Strangers fanzine, because you can really find some really cool interviews with smaller press comic creators that you maybe wouldn't normally hear from. And Strangers has a really great body of work. You can find some of the books they distribute on their website as well. I'll have all that linked in the description below, so please check out Fanzine's catalog of books. And Crania is a really awesome addition to that. It's in the vein of an old Conan, Cole, Red Sonja, an old like 70s sword and sorcery Marvel comic. It is oversized. It's a little bit more similar to like a magazine heavy metal size. This is an example of another magazine size barbarian type comic, Joe Kubert's Tor. Here's also The Flowers of Hell, another book that was at this size. And this was originally published in heavy metal. And here's a normal comic. So you can see it's a little bit larger. It's just magazine size. And this size is super flattering for this artwork. This comic is beautiful throughout. Love this cover. It reminds me of like a Jack Kirby close-up of eyes. They're always like closer than they should be, but it works and it's still like they're staring into your soul. Super dynamic. Love that we still get this little bit of the sword in the shot. Has this awesome frame around it, kind of like a runescapey, old medieval, kind of like wrought iron feel to it. This is adults only, and I want to say that at the beginning, there is some nudity in this comic, so if that offends you, maybe click off. So showing off the front and back cover, just get a little bit of a sense of Brian McCray's style. I love the proportions that he draws with like some thicker legs and thighs, a bigger waist. I think his characters feel very realized and have some good volume and weight to them, and they feel very real in the world that he's creating. So we start off with a little bit of a cast of our characters up here that we're going to meet throughout. And then I love a map inclusion in a comic or a book. And we start with this prologue, and some of the characters we're going to kind of run into. We have Crania, the warrior, obviously. We have Exodon, who is this like eel-like character. He's who we meet first as he's going through this elven city. It's kind of like this tall spire that's like built into this mountain rock formation. So he overhears that these elves are speaking in secret, and they're saying, "For the ebbing power flows. If the substance wanes much more, we could completely lose our grip even on these weakened citizens." So there's something's going on with the substance, and how maybe the elves are controlling people. We get like a little bit of like a Game of Thrones kind of feeling where like this sister is like caressing her brother's face. Exodon runs out and he runs to our next hero, Herzor, this tiger, and he's telling him that he has to go. Their suspicions have finally come to light, and he needs to go find the only warrior left in the world, I believe powerful enough to help us. And so he goes off to find her. Definitely getting some Mobius kind of inspiration here with this like pterodactyl creature that he's flying on. And we get this awesome, awesome introduction to Crania. Here she's fighting this big dragon abomination, and we start with "this damn thing ate my horse." He's about to find out why dragons don't fuck around with Crania, the warrior. Love this kind of rendering of like this jagged dark shadow that's running up her leg to have a highlight on the outside and inside. It's a really great way to depict that form, kind of show the weight of it, and also give us a little bit of contrast and like showing that she's got some light hitting her. And this dragon is just amazing. There's so much like movement here and the way the neck curves and then the way the legs are off the ground and everything. It's just really dynamic, really strong pose. I love how it's just like sweeping through the whole page. Even some nice dry brush here for her shadow, but we get some awesome zipatone throughout as well. There are 2 issues of this series. The first one is completely black and white with zipatone, and the second issue is full color. Brian is really using a great balance of thick black to kind of give us this hard substance, the form to these characters, and really letting things be bold and then knowing when to fill in with the gray, and it really balances really nice. Such a cool turn from like this dragon coming right at us, then all of a sudden we're at this low angle as she just swiped at the dragon and he just jumped up and she completely missed him. She says, "Grit's sake, you're fast." But such an amazing double page splash. I love like the organicness of the clouds compared to them too. A little bit of birds just to tell you that we're looking at the sky. So cool. And I like the little bit of the panel break here as well. But the dragon comes back down, lands on her, and they're fighting, but she starts to get some good swings in and knocks his tail off. And we see Herzor has found her. Such a great profile view. I love the zigzag lines that Brian does for the cheeks on Herzor. And he comes in, he's going to assist her, and she says, "Oh, you think I need help, kitty?" And so he says, "Take hold as we glide by." Fine, I'm getting bored anyway, so she'll finally accept his help, but she doesn't need it. Still some super great movement as we move through this page, and then go through the tail to up here, and we know she's going to do something to that neck as it's outstretched. Then she does a dive straight down, gets the dragon, just stabs him right away, and just hawks that head right off in one fell swoop. And I love this kind of cartoony, kind of like head chop off where it's just like a circle. You see the bone in there with all the meat surrounding it. It's just really great balance of black and white on these pages. And the paper, it's like kind of similar to a newsprint. It's not really. It's a little smoother, but you can see like there's a little bit of fiber in this page, so it's still adding like a little bit of noise and texture, which works really nicely with the line art. And so, although this dragon ate her horse, she is celebrating at least that brute didn't get into my wine supply. Now they're gonna sit down, and we see that they're being spied on by somebody here that looks mysterious and evil. But while that's happening, we jump into Herzor's tale, kind of catching Crania up on why they need her help. And I love this cartoony style shift, because I love that we get this contrast too of where we see Herzor here, and then we go here and he looks like a cereal mascot. So great. I love to see this kind of range and seeing an artist kind of stretch on the page like that, but it works so perfectly. And I love that we're still getting Crania drawn kind of normally in contrast with him as well. And so we get the history of Exodon and Herzor and how they were sent to live with the elves when they were young, part of a political deal that neither of us understood at the time. The atmosphere inside the elves' fortress city started to change me the longer we stayed, and then now we can talk, and then all of a sudden he's like a walking, talking tiger. I love that we're still in the cartooniness as he's like begging for her help, and then she agrees, and then we just get a "what in shit?" and then like a hard cut, and then we're just straight into the dungeon. I think that's a really fun use of the format, because it's like they're looking up over here, and we're just like transitioning right to this new scene. Great like dungeon master torturer character designs. And her hair is like tied up and she's shackled by the wrist, and they're prisoners of the sorceress, giving her the enchanted whip. And damn, what a spread. So much like shadow and darkness on the page, and then letting just like the right side of this character be in highlight so we can see him before he's fading into the darkness. She's like opening it up and like opening up this door and like giving light that's then illuminating what we're seeing. But we get the whip, how it's coming over and getting her. And you feel that hit, and you feel her tensing up in the pose. Really amazing spread, and really drawing your attention to the 3 characters in the scene. And so she's asking where Herzor is. She's like, "Is that your big kitty? Don't worry. We have made him equally as comfortable." She says, "You ought to be ashamed of yourself, Tasha." And so we kind of get a little bit of a hint that these two might know each other. I love her design with the two skulls on the front, and they both have like bull nose piercings, like right between the eyes. Crania starts to break out. She gets the knife away from one of the torturers, and she cuts her own hair, cuts herself free, and then stabs the guy in the eye. Then we get a fight between those two before she cuts his head off. Right when she's about to go for Tasha, she fades away. "Wrong. I'll deal with you later. If you survive the rest of my dungeon, that is." Crania suits up. We get this awesome look of her walking toward the camera. She finds where her Zora is being kept. I love this 3-panel sequence as she kicks the door in. We see her, she's gone in. We see a head bouncing back out, and then now she's freeing her Zora. They continue on through the dungeon. That's when they meet the next enemy, the Executrix. And her design is just amazing too. I love that we have these like big platform boots with her bikini kind of design, and I love just like it goes up to the spike necklace and then the floating eye that's just surrounded by fire. Just such a great character design. So they fight. Amazing page on the right here of the eye in the center as they're fighting around, and she's kind of just like defending around here. I love the swipe up as she jumps, and we get the shot of like her in the heels. She's still able to jump that high. Some high kicks as well. But it's great. It's like the top is all hands and the bottom is all feet, and then the eye is seeing all of it. And I feel like you could just kind of continue to read it in a circle, just like the fight's going on forever and they're just continuing the tussle. But we get a callback to her wine bag. She finds it and she shoots the wine in the face of the Executrix. Here's another amazing like character moment of these two kind of like sneaking through. They're at the final stage of the dungeon. They're looking past over the door, and we just have them like stacked looking over, and they just look so awesome and badass. Here we see that Tasha has the substance that the elves were speaking of. She's been stealing it, and they're witnessing her kind of speak about her plan. But even the elves seem unaware that the true power of the substance comes from the link all the samples have to each other. And she casts away her robe she's been wearing the whole time. Love that the skulls are still like part of her under outfit. And so she puts this design she has in the cauldron. "Tonight I put an end to the elves' reign once and for all, without even setting foot in their hideous castle. Drink deep, my friend." The reason they ended up here before they went on Herzora's mission was that Crania told him she needed something from the sorceress's castle, and now she's saying, "I came here to get something, Tasha, and I'm not leaving without it. Drink the ladle of anguish once more, Crania, my weaker half." We see a little bit of a reveal that Crania has gone through something like this already, and she's being called the weaker half. And they're going and they're fighting for this ladle of anguish, and they're pulling against it, and Crania's saying, "I don't know if stronger is how I'd describe you." She says, "How then, fool? A real pain in the ass," and then punches her in the face. She says, "Now we're going to do things my way." And right when she's tying her up, Tasha puts out a knife and then stabs her in the back. She grabs her by the neck and throws her into the cauldron, and they both go in swimming. And then while they're in, we get a little bit of a merging, and they come together to form one new being, or come back together, because she comes out and Herzor is surprised. "Crania?" She says, "Yes, and I finally feel myself again. Now what about that quest of yours, Herzor? With a Crania will return." It's just such a fun first issue. It really sets the tone for like what this universe could be like, what this book is going to be like. Want to call attention to these awesome fake ads that Brian made. I love when comics do this. And it got a great like plastic foot model kit joke here. "Recreate your favorite Tarantino film moments." And a fake like Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilder ad. "I will unmake you." Another splash of our hero on her horse. I guess this is probably the horse that was eaten, so RIP. I just wanted to call attention to a comic that I think is awesome. I had a ton of fun revisiting this comic. It just does the best thing a comic can do, which is inspire you and make you want to draw. I hope this little show and tell has inspired you all to check out Crania. To try to find any issues you can, I'd highly suggest checking out the Strangers website, which will be linked in the description below. But let me know, are you a fan of sword and sorcery comics? Have you read a lot of Conan, Cole, read Sonja? Sound off in the comments section. And if you're a real comic freak like me, maybe consider checking out my comics too. I'm a self-published cartoonist, and you can find all my work at danegeorges.com, which is linked in the description below. I do a series called Doomskull, which is about an ex-supervillain that works in a grocery store with his minion Bag Boy. I have 3 issues of that with the 4th on the way. You can check out X-Ray, which is a collection of my 4-panel webcomics that I would post on Instagram, Webtoons, and Tapastic, as well as black and white horror zines and others like Jigglybub, Sleepless Sights, and The Passenger. But you can find all this and way more at danegeorges.com. And if you want to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. I post a new video every Wednesday, so you're sure to find something that you enjoy. But until next time, remember to think and read dangerously.